Hey guys, it's Bruce. Be Cool Radios. Over here in Seattle, Washington. How y'all doing? Good, I hope. Hey, this video is really just kind of a reach out and say thank you guys. I see I'm getting close to 1,000 subscriptions. I never thought. Wow. That is really cool. Us old CB guys, we all got stories, right? I got so many. I'd love to tell you them all. Maybe someday, right? But it does go way back in my blood. I've been working on these radios, seems like forever, right? In fact, I met my wife on the CB radio back in 1974. I was just a teenager. But, magic happens. It's so funny. CB radio back then was like the internet today. You talk to all kinds of people without really seeing their face. At least you got to hear their voice. That always helped, right? So hey, what you guys are looking at here is really my inspiration for doing a Frankenstein radio. I thought about it for years. I had this Spark-O-Matic. Remember these Spark-O-Matic radios? They look kind of cool. They had one of the few radios back in that day that had handles, right? All silver. Those red meters are really cool, right? But the downside of these were, they were AM only. It was okay for some of us, but it wasn't a good AM radio either. These radios, you would pick these up at Shucks Auto Parts. Yeah, Shucks Auto Parts. That's what we had in Seattle. You'd see these on the, at the auto store. Maybe at Fred Meyer. Spark-O-Matic, right? I think I had a Spark-O-Matic FM radio too for my car. So my thought was always, it's just a waste to have that beautiful radio not perform. I want to rip out the guts and put in a modern sideband radio and maybe a frequency counter too, because this guy had, you can see there, AM, PM. Yeah, it had a clock. So this is really what motivated me to do the first Frankenstein. And really guys, I do these videos to motivate you guys, right? Once you build a Frankenstein, they're hard to let go. You put your sweat and tears into that thing, right? Hours. You're gonna fumble a few times, something's gonna go wrong, gotta figure it all out. So after you put that much effort into something, it would be hard to sell. It's not that I've never done it, but I'm telling you, right? Really, I'm trying to encourage you guys to do this too. Now, this radio had some challenges because it was a cheap radio. Yeah, check out, this is how deep it was. But look, at least it used real wood, right, for the top. So it wasn't very deep. Cobra 148 was not going to fit in there. Well, maybe it could have. But I decided to go with a PLL02a sideband mobile radio made by Midland that was kind of like the GE Superbase dual board CB radio, because technically they're not as deep, right? Yeah, I've learned later you don't have to put any particular orientation into a Frankenstein. But what do you think about this? You see, it's got the fine tune. It's got a local distance, so that's your RF gain here. There's your band switch right here between sideband and upper sideband and lower sideband. You see that AM, that I think this is lower sideband, has a bit of an offset, but upper sideband and AM, they match. What else does it have? Yeah, the fine tune. You know, these knobs, the tone knob still works, the DX. And it's got some extra channels right here too. So it goes up to like channel 56 or so. So what do you think of this radio? Good stuff? I got several of these Spark-O-Matics with plans of building some. Not all for me, but yeah, I haven't been building Frankensteins lately. So let's open the top and look in there. Maybe you guys will recognize this. Okay, here you go. There's the Meanwell power supply, because you know these had a cheap ass power supply. I had to yank all that out. So I always recommend these Meanwell power supplies because they seem to be less noisy. I got this one pumping about 14.2 volts. Works really good. Now let's check out this board. You see? Anybody who has a GE Superbase, they just might recognize this, right? There's your pass-through connector to the what these guys used, and there's those stupid pins where everybody talks about you got to reflow them, because really this is a dual-sided main board, and they have pins from the top and bottom sides, and then on top of that there's actually two boards. Can you see it down there? There's two boards, one sitting on top of each other. Yeah, they crammed a lot of stuff into that little thing to make it a few inches shorter, I think. Because look at, there's still a lot of space in there. They didn't really maximize the space. And check this out. On PLL02a radios, this is your AM TX adjustment. It's a rheostat. Instead of an AM regulator, yeah, they just used a big old power rheostat, lowered the voltage. But these are cool radios. Yeah, this one works rather well. Let's give it a little test here. Let's get this thing over here on AM. We got AM here. Okay, let's get some audio out of this. Now, you know, I do all my testing with a stock mic, right? All right. Check, check, check. Audio, audio. How's that look? Audio. Oh yeah, it stretches that. Check, check. Audio. Okay. Power. Audio. Yeah, it's got some good forward mod for PLL02a. Let's try the sideband test. And we'll go to upper sideband here. A little easier to get to. Okay, switch this over to upper sideband. Get my antenna feed in there, right? Alright, here we go. Check, check, check. Audio. Let's zero beat this guy. There it is. Audio. Check, check, check. Audio. Yeah, that sounds real good too. So yeah, this turned out really good. It inspired me to do some more, you know? So, especially your first few ones, they're gonna be kind of wild and you never know what you get. I think after this I did a DAC 9, because those big old boxes, yeah, if you got a DAC around, so much room in there to make a Frankenstein, and that's a lot of fun too. Alright guys, so that's it on this video. Just wanted to show you you can do it too. Because really, all these old classic CB radios are just a mobile radio stuck in a box with a power supply, and you gotta put some wires out here to the potentiometers and whatnot, but you know, that's what they all were. So don't be scared to build one if you really think these are cool. Alright guys, 73s. Be cool in Seattle. Later.